Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from Undeath. It's time to rise from the grave. Out April 22nd on Prosthetic Records. The album has 10 tracks, 36 minutes in length, and this the band's second full-length studio album. They are an American death metal band. Now this record is packed tightly. These 10 songs have no cracks, no room to breathe, no room to break between them. It's 36 minutes of pure obliteration coming at you relentlessly, song in and song out. The album moves in a very linear format. It doesn't have a lot of ebbs and flows. It has some ripples here and there, so it changes ever so slightly the movement or your perception of the movement. But that wall of sound that becomes the main characteristic of the record, that stays balanced, that stays together all the way through. Now, when I look at an album that has these sort of characteristics, I look for two elements in order to dictate exactly what the playability of the album is going to be all about. I look at the length of the songs, and I look at the length of the album. You want both to be short-lived, because you want at the end of the album to feel like the record was easy to digest, even though it was very brutal, and it was easier for you to tell the forest from the trees. Not everything becomes just one big picture. You're able to better understand all the different pieces of this puzzle. And I feel like this record has both. The songs are around 3.5 minutes in length, and the album is 36 minutes, so everything stays very connected, everything stays very concise. So you're able to live through the brutality, you're able to live through the heaviness a lot easier this way, and you're ready to come back for more at the end of it, because it didn't really overburden you by overextending itself. Definitely the right elements in order to increase the playability, in order to increase the overall entertainment value of the album, and make the experience for the listener as best as possible. As far as the soundscape is concerned, this is death metal. I mean, there's zero gimmicks with this album. This is just pure old school death metal. There are some modern elements to it, but I feel like really the meat and bones of this album is really old school death metal. If you look at bands like Emulation, for example, you're going to find a lot of those elements coming alive on this album in terms of how the sound is put together, how the sound is defined, a sound that holds itself up front. You feel the spear of the record is all that brutality, it's all that heaviness, is all that aggression coming at you with drums, guitars and bass, everything together, packed tightly together. Sometimes easier to define them, sometimes a little bit harder. Walking that fine line really becomes the calling card of the entire record. There are some songs on this album that are a little bit more grimy, and the grimier the tracks get, the harder it is to define the elements. You can hear them, you feel them in that overall wall of sound, but it becomes very hard to determine exactly which one is driving which. The songs that have a little bit more warmth, that feel more organic, those give you a better glimpse in terms of how they were put together, or at least a better glimpse in what's pushing what. It's the drums pushing the guitars, or the guitars pushing the drums. You see those elements coming alive a little bit better. They're better defined in their own essence, in their own way of being created. But this record all around really becomes that wall of sound, and that is what it's going to stick through and stay with you once you navigate through all 10 songs. The drums on this record have that sense of grounding the album on one hand, but also propelling the album forward, allowing the guitars to be a little bit more driven at times, even penetrating, but still also having that heavier side that packs in with the drums, and you see that becoming the root of all the evil that exists on this album as far as that big volume is concerned. I like the fact that the drums have this duality of roles, allowing them to be a little bit more extended, allowing not just the sound to feel big, but to have substance within it. And the same you could be said about the guitars. The guitars either driving the experience or packing that sound, creating that heaviness, allowing themselves to have substance within themselves, allowing themselves to have a little bit of energy and life, specifically when it comes to the solos. The solos are the few times or the few elements that, while still keeping a lot of the brutality alive and how they come across, they do open the book ever so slightly so that the songs feel like they have at least a little bit of time to breathe, a little bit of time to be better digested. I also like the old school flavor that those solos have, matching perfectly with the overall soundscape and the overall design of this record. Then you have the vocals, and the vocals are the perfect nail to this coffin. They come a little bit more from the background. So if you think or you see the sound as that spearhead right at the front, that wall of sound coming at you, the vocals are behind that wall of sound. They're trying to break through it or push through it. They never really get to do it. They always stay right on that edge, but they add movement to the experience. When you have an album that has this substantial approach and has this feeling of always moving very linear, you have to create movement in any form that you can. So having the vocals create a little bit of that movement, create a little bit of more of a dynamic flow within the tracks themselves, even songs that don't move that much, the movement of the vocals alone allow them to feel like they're coming to life a little bit better, really makes the overall experience feel more complete. It also feels more complete because it adds that old school flavor of not necessarily making the vocals feel cleaner, or at least sitting on top of everything else. Hiding them a little bit behind that sound, hiding them a little bit behind the drums and guitars really adds to the overall experience of this album. An album that for the fans of death metal, once again, zero gimmicks, and I feel like if you listen to the genre and if you're a fan of the genre, this album is going to hit home because they're not trying to be something they're not. They're not trying to be fancy. They're not trying to add other things to it in order to embellish their sound, embellish their experience. No, they're just trying to make an album as heavy, as brutal, as uncompromising as possible. And that's exactly what this record is. Now, as far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Fiend for Corpses. This is the opening track. And I love that the opening track doesn't start with brutality right away. It actually gives you a bass lick to get things going, and then the brutality starts, and then it becomes a very grinding song all the way through with a lot of heaviness, a lot of power, the drums and guitars building together that incredible wall of sound that's going to become the DNA, the calling card of the rest of the album. The vocals are behind it, trying to pushing it through, almost feeling like it's actually pushing the whole volume through, which makes the song feel even more more aggressive in nature and in the experience that it gives. The solo brings that old school flavor. It allows you to breathe in a little bit. It allows the song to catch his breath, but it doesn't lose in terms of the dirt. The solo has heaviness in it. It may not feel very heavy, but it has heavy elements to it that match perfectly with the overall design of the track and the experience that the track was giving you up until that point and from that point going forward. So the perfect element for the perfect song. Enhancing the Death is the next track. I love the more warmth approach that this track offers. It's not as grimy. It's better defined within its elements. You could even say it's a groovier track because of it. It just doesn't feel as direct to the punch. It doesn't feel like it's just about brutality and heaviness. This one gives you a little bit more to digest. It has a little bit more texture to it. It has some explosive bursts. It has some more methodic movements. It's a track that because of that and because of that background grooviness that the overall sound has, feels more dynamic. It feels like it has more of a roller coaster ride. It never really stands still. It never stays calm. It's just always taking you into a different arena, into a different approach, and that keeps you engaged, keeps you connected, and it keeps you coming back for more, which is exactly what you want from any single track. Last but not least, Human Chandelier. Wow, this one, it just runs you over. It's a track that just really doesn't let you ever slow down. It's coming for you, and if you take 1 second, it's over you. So it's a track that feels demolishing in nature and sound and construction and how it's put together. It's a killer track from that perspective. The heaviness and aggression really packed in together as one. Drums and guitars weighed a ton, and they're the ones creating that movement, that bulldoze movement that the track has. The vocals feel like they're just the perfect outlet for all of that brutality, because they really feel like they're trying to push through that brutality by adding even more. And that dynamic of sound and vocals coming together in a very linear, forward, heavy sounding track really makes this song stand out in the crowd. In a crowd of heavy songs, an even heavier track in terms of how it feels definitely is going to stand out. This is it. Undeath with It's Time to Rise from the Grave, out April 22nd on Prosthetic Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.